A young black man named Darius stood quietly in line, waiting for his flight. He was dressed in a simple hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. But as he approached the TSA checkpoint, the whispers began. "Look at him," one traveler muttered under his breath to his companion. "Dressed like that, probably up to no good." A group of young men in expensive suits laughed quietly among themselves, stealing glances at Darius. Their eyes held condescension, their smirks full of mockery. They nudged each other, making jokes at his expense. "Hey man, you sure you can even afford this flight?" one of them sneered. Darius ignored them. He had spent years learning how to silence the noise, how to keep his composure. He had dealt with worse. But as he handed his boarding pass to the airline agent, he noticed something. The agent hesitated. She scanned his ticket twice, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice laced with skepticism. "Are you sure this is your ticket?" Darius raised an eyebrow. "Yes, ma'am." "Is there a problem?" She glanced at the well-dressed passengers behind him and then back at him, her judgment evident. "I'll need to verify this. Please step aside." A security guard approached, his hand resting near his holster. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Before Darius could answer, one of the suited men behind him scoffed. "Probably trying to sneak onto a flight he can't afford." Laughter erupted from the group, but Darius stayed silent. He could feel the weight of judgment in the air. His patience was being tested, but he had learned long ago that moments like this required restraint. The airline agent motioned for another TSA officer to step in. "Sir, do you have any other form of identification? We just need to confirm." Darius exhaled slowly. The eyes of the crowd were on him. The humiliation sat heavy on his chest, but he remained calm. With deliberate movement, he reached into his wallet. "Sure," he said, his voice even. "I have another ID. This one should clear everything up." He pulled out a sleek black ID card and held it up. The security guard took it, his eyes widening as he read the words printed in bold lettering. The laughter behind him stopped. The air in the terminal changed in an instant. The security guard's face turned pale as his eyes scanned the ID in his hands. The bold, golden letters on the black card stood out against the fluorescent airport lighting. United States Army, Special Forces. Below it, Darius' name was embossed, along with a rank that commanded respect. The TSA officer stiffened. The airline agent's smirk faded as realization hit her like a tidal wave. The murmurs in the crowd turned into stunned silence. The men who had been mocking Darius moments ago craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the card. Their arrogance melted into disbelief. The security guard straightened his posture immediately. "Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience," he stammered, handing the ID back with a shaky hand. "I didn't realize." "You didn't realize what?" Darius' voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable steel behind it. His patience had limits. The airline agent swallowed hard. We just have to be careful, you know? Standard procedures." Darius let out a slow breath, suppressing the storm building inside him. "Standard procedures," he repeated, his gaze unwavering. Funny how they don't seem to apply to everyone. The suited men who had ridiculed him shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a blonde-haired man who had laughed the loudest, stepped forward. "Hey man, we didn't mean anything by it. It was just, a joke." "A joke." Darius turned to him, his calm exterior cracking just slightly. "You humiliated a stranger for no reason. You assumed without knowing a single thing about me. That's not a joke, that's ignorance." The man opened his mouth but found no words. His friend stared at the floor, avoiding eye contact. Darius looked around at the faces watching him. Some full of shame, some embarrassed, others simply stunned. He had been in situations like this before. Too many times. But today something was different. He wasn't just some nameless man being profiled at an airport. He was a soldier. A man who had served, sacrificed, and risked everything for a country that still saw him as less. "Next time," Darius said, his voice carrying across the terminal, "think twice before you judge someone based on their appearance." A murmur of agreement rippled through the bystanders. The security guard cleared his throat. "Mr. Johnson, please proceed to your gate. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Darius nodded but didn't move immediately. Instead, he turned to the suited men once more. "And if you still think this is funny, I'd love to see any of you try and do what I do for a living." With that, he turned and walked toward his gate. Heads turned as he passed, and the once mocking group of men now stood frozen, processing what had just happened. But this wasn't over yet. As Darius sat near his gate, waiting for boarding to begin, A middle-aged black woman approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me, young man," she said softly. "I just wanted to say thank you. For your service, and for standing your ground back there." Darius smiled and nodded. "I appreciate that, ma'am." Just then a young white boy tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, is he a real soldier?" he asked in awe. His mother smiled warmly. "Yes, sweetie. A real hero." As Darius glanced around, he noticed the suited men still lingering nearby, their eyes downcast. One of them hesitated before stepping forward. "Listen, man," he said awkwardly. "I was out of line. We all were. I just wanted to say, I respect what you do. I'm sorry." Darius studied him for a moment before nodding. Takes a man to admit when he's wrong. As he boarded his flight, Darius couldn't help but wonder, how many others like him face the same judgment every day? And what happens to those who don't have an ID to prove their worth? What do you think? We'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for watching.